All right, welcome everybody to the second episode of There Are Four Hosts. I am one of your hosts, Michael.
Hey there, I am Jonathan, just average J.
Hey guys, Sabrina's back. You can find me as White Cat Gaming pretty much anywhere. And unfortunately, our dear friend Eris had to depart. We had some time zone issues, but my dear friend Keith is here to replace him. Well, not replace him in our hearts, obviously, but in the sound file. Hi, Keith.
Hey, everyone. I'm Keith Justice. If you're listening to this and you used to listen to my podcast, HJU, because you've been begging me to do podcasts again, this is me doing it again, but not for what I used to do it for. And if you don't know me, I used to run a website called Hinge and Justice. That was about Japanese live-action sci-fi that most of you guys know of as Power Rangers, but that is just a tiny facet of the many things that Japanese science fiction can be. So, that's who I am.
Cool.
Okay, but why do you like Star Trek, Keith?
I have been into Star Trek since, like, the beginning. To OG fans, I apologize, because I did not like OG Star Wars, Star Trek.
Rude.
Well, sorry. My bad,
You're fired. You're fired.
Yeah, like, it's so raggedy looking, and like
I'm offended.
And like I was forcing myself, and I was like, I get something's going on here, but then like the movies hit, and like that's when I started loving like Star Trek sci-fi. Like the motion picture is my favorite one, and then
Really?
there's Hot and Cold. Oh yeah, I'll slip the bat for a motion picture any day of the week. That was amazing. It still is.
Hey, Jay, can you mute his mic real quick? No, I'm kidding.
I stand by that one. That is a beautiful movie. It's slow science fiction like I like it, and it's like addressing like big weird ideas versus a Starship Shootout, which it can be fun, but I want to see Star Trek push the boundaries of my imagination, and it's
Okay.
not so much about like tactical combat.
Cool. I'm still offended, though.
As you should be. As you should be.
We are all offended.
That I'm doing my job.
There you
All
go.
right.
Good.
Well, in that case, I guess you're lucky, because we are talking about a Star Trek movie today.
And real quickly before we get started, I wanted to thank everyone that listened to our first episode. We very much appreciate
you.
it. There was like, I think, only one of those was my wife, so all the rest were legitimate listens.
All
so we-
four of them.
Yes.
What? Your wife is a legitimate listener.
Well, no,
I
you
don't
know what I
how
mean.
you-
Like she was obligated to listen, whereas other people
of
weren't.
course.
So, but yeah, we're going to talk about Star Trek Nemesis, which was quote unquote the movie that killed a franchise, is what I read.
So many things have killed Star Trek.
Well,
And
yeah.
yet, here's Star Trek stands.
I watched this twice, and I don't know. I like it because it is Star Trek, and there's good parts in it, but I don't know. I mean, overall, the whole thing I think was just very weak. The plot, I mean, it just.
It's Star Trek, like TV Star Trek is more like cerebral, and
Yeah.
this movie is definitely more like action Star Trek.
Dark action
Like,
that we never want to see.
let's
Picard
talk
do.
about that Dune bug thing for a sec. I mean,
Yeah, it's.
As a gearhead, that was one of my favorite parts.
It was
That
weird,
thing
though.
a solid 5 minute scene of them just like fucking around in the desert in a Dune buggy.
And it's because
It was awesome.
Patrick Stewart's a gearhead, and that's why.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Because
I love it.
Yeah, there's like some interviews where he's just like, I love driving more than anything. I'm always thinking about driving, blah, 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 driving. So, like, the thing that impression I got about the movie was it felt like there was like a party going on behind the scenes because, like, none of them were acting like their normal Star Trek TV characters. They're all just like getting ready to fight and shoot guns and, oh my God,
Have
I can
fun.
drive a car. And you're like, yeah, they're like, yeah, well, we like Patrick Stewart. Why wouldn't we hook him up? But for us, when we're watching the movie, it's just like, ugh.
Well, actually, now I like that scene because I know Patrick wanted it in there, so I
Yep,
changed.
that smile the smile he has is totally genuine. Like him, like giggling and
Yeah.
stuff.
That's
it's just
awesome.
like, woo! So
like
yeah, that's
drip.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
that's what I like about that scene is that like he's clearly enjoying himself. So
Yep.
I'm glad you told us that because I was wondering about that. I was like, that doesn't seem like a very Picard choice, but it's just because it's Patrick Stewart having a fucking blast.
And like Argo is a company I
into
think
it.
that makes trucks or something like that. So I think there's like a dual like, hey, we can get some money from this company. We get to make Patrick Stewart happy, and the fans, well, they'll live through it.
I thought it was awesome. Who doesn't want to drift a truck in the desert? Just go crazy.
Not me if I have a hovercraft shuttle.
Yeah,
That's
fair
true.
enough.
I feel like I would die.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff about that scene that didn't make sense, and yeah, it bothered me.
Well, I mean, here's I mean, if we want to jump right in, because
Yeah.
that
Let's
scene,
do it.
Why not?
So, I mean, if you think about that scene, first off, the whole before, like, you know what I mean? Like, just the like,
before the wedding,
oh,
the
hey,
before,
yeah.
or-
Well,
The
no.
name.
Yeah, it's like, oh, hey, we're gonna just happen to have one of Data's, brothers.
Yeah.
In
Oh, yeah,
different
yeah.
pieces all over this planet. Like, it was just so blatantly kind of almost generic to
Right.
set up. Yeah.
The wrongness on this starts with Star Trek Discovery levels of ruining how science fiction works in Star Trek, because they're like another piece of the galaxy altogether. Yet they get a signal of a positronic brain on a planet.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I
There's,
mean. Like,
there's no way they could pick that up.
No,
It was
Is
so
that how it
generic.
works?
Yeah, it was so generically laid out. I mean, the thing is, like, again, yeah, it's an action movie and it's fun, but I mean, just the layout of it was, it just, it didn't quite hit the mark for me.
The writer of this movie also is like either a friend or fan of Brent Spiner, so that's why we got so much Data in
Oh.
front.
Well, I didn't mind that,
mean-
but
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are people. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, this is like where the silliness and weirdness comes from.
I gotta say though, they did a good job casting because they have like the same nose.
yeah. I wasn't upset with the Tom Hardy casting. He was pretty good, I thought.
Oh, okay.
Tom
I thought you
Hardy
meant the
is
two
yeah.
Datas. I'm like, wait,
Sorry, I
they're
was
the
talking
same
about Tom
actor.
Hardy. Yeah,
Yeah,
Tom
they both
Hardy,
have the same
yeah.
nose. Is that a
I
joke?
wasn't talking about 4 different Brent Spiners.
They all
my
were
bad.
great.
They all take turns at conventions, so none of us know any better.
The second Brent Spiner was just dead on. Like, how do you do that?
That was amazing.
Yeah.
I had no idea. But no, it's funny.
movie's
Like,
kinda silly.
yeah, Tom Hardy has actually become one of my favorite actors. Like, he is really,
Yeah.
really, really talented. And
He is, yeah.
you could just see how he was so good as Shinzon. I mean, it was, and that was like his. If I'm not mistaken, that was like his big break, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
it was.
Yeah.
I read on the internet earlier, so it's obviously true. But
Yeah.
Obviously,
it was
yeah.
his try. He tried to make it his big break, and when it flopped, he kind of got really depressed and everything. And luckily, he turned that around. But yeah, it's we can blame Star Trek for Tom Hardy's early depression.
I feel like a lot of people can blame Star Trek for. No, I'm just kidding.
After Nemesis, yeah.
We're gonna get an email from CBS, and they'll be like, "Please don't podcast about Star Trek any
Just
longer."
desist.
Stop helping us.
Yikes.
With Shinzon, my problem with that was like, I
That
wonder
did make sense.
Yeah.
that and like I wonder if like I misunderstand how budgets in movies can be used, because like what I think would be more interesting is when they roll up to the Romulan Empire, it feels like it should be a showdown with like the Romulan Empire. It'd be kind of cool
Yeah.
to see like the Federation versus Romulan Empire and see how that works out. But at the start of the movie, they wipe out the leadership of the Romulan Empire so that we have a human instead to face, and I felt like that kind of sucked.
Yeah, okay, there's some setup issues. Definitely, like, the idea of having a Captain Kirk. That's because I'm still upset about that TOS thing.
Mute her mic! Mute her mic!
Yeah, we're all in trouble today.
I'm still upset about the TOS thing that you just said. Okay, it doesn't matter. It was intelligent to do, like, a Captain Picard clone kind of plot. Because, like, he's definitely gotten in the way of a lot of enemies. So, like, maybe
Yeah.
they think there's something that they can replicate in there. But then they're making a clone, and then the clone ending up in like a Riemann prison so that they could just abuse it. Like, why would they spend all of those resources to create that clone and then just dump it in a prison somewhere? That's stupid.
And since
Yeah.
there's not an actual clone war, it means that was like all their resources in one shot for something special, and they're like, fuck it.
Fuck
Yeah.
it.
Wait, we spent like 10 years doing this. It's split with 3 years. I don't care.
Yeah, so as much as I appreciate the acting in the scenes between Shinzon and Picard and
Yes.
like and it's great acting, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't write, and I see this in television too, and it really bothers me. You can't write an entire plot just for specific character scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree about the performances, because like there's like this like I hate the idea altogether. I'm sorry, but like when they were like facing off as actors and they were just going hard, I was like, oh, okay, they are into this. This is pretty good performance if, I like the story too.
If I like the story.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Keith, though. I thought the idea of the clone was, the whole plot idea was not great, but I read that I think his director is Stuart Baird, I think his name was. Like, he didn't really have any Star Trek knowledge before doing this, and so he just kind of, that could be why, this movie was, like, not very good. Because he just kind of came in and didn't know what he was doing, basically.
Yeah, I have strong despair towards how often people will say about a Star Trek movie, the person who came on didn't know anything about Star Trek and didn't bother researching Star Trek and didn't really enjoy researching Star Trek, doing Star Trek. Then why did you give them the job?
Well, that's just it. Then why are they there? Like, that makes no sense at all, Yeah. If you can't...
Well, in the case of one particular person, I'm sure he was there for a Star Wars interview, and he got it.
Nice.
So congratulations to him, But I'll point everybody that interview that he did with Jon Stewart, where he was like, I don't really like Star Trek, but, and then he went on, and then Jon Stewart at the end was like, sorry, I stopped listening when you said I don't like Star Trek.
Awesome.
You need to apologize now, and
I will never forget him saying that, too. Like, he's like, yeah, I've always more of a Star Wars guy. I'm like, you motherfucker. Yeah.
And you really like Star Wars, so, like, it's possible to like both.
Yeah.
Just, if you're gonna have a job working on a movie from a franchise, make it from that franchise, not the other franchise you like. Obvious.
A lot of people would kill for that job, but he just gets it on a whim, whether he wants it or not.
I know we were talking about a different Star Trek movie, but sorry, just to interject first, like the new Star Trek movies with the J.J. Abrams verse, like, I like watching as, like, popcorn entertainment, but it really feels like a Star Wars with, like, a Star Trek coat of paint on top.
I thought Star Trek Beyond was legit, though. Like, I felt that was
Yeah,
legit
but that's because Star Trek Beyond was written by Simon Pegg, who actually does love Star Trek.
Yeah.
So, if you were wondering why Beyond was good, it was because it was written by Simon Pegg, who
And
is
directed by
brilliant writer.
And Justin Lin is an amazing director.
Justin Lin is an amazing director. When he first got hired, I asked around about him, and they were like, yes. Have you seen Fast and Furious? And I was like, no, I'm very much not a fan of that franchise just because I don't care
Have you
about,
seen
like...
Community?
Yeah.
Of course I've seen Community.
He did the
but
first...
when we're talking about Fast and Furious,
Go.
the movie that he did of Fast and Furious, they were like, that was the first movie where it became about them being a family. And I was like, perfect. Then he will do Star Trek great.
He did
Now tell me
Tokyo
about
Drift
Community.
And the paintball gun episode of Community.
Ah, that's a great one.
Uh-huh.
He's a great action director for sure.
Yeah, and then, like, the ship... the last thing about Star Trek Beyond is, like, the ship called the USS Franklin is named after his dad, Frank Lin. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
That's
it up
sweet.
in my living room. I love that ship. Anyway, back to Nemesis.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're totally
crappy.
talking about Nemesis.
Exactly.
Crappy starships. I did not like the... Well, no, wait. Do I like it or not? Was it called the Scimitar?
The Scimitar was sweet. That is
It was pretty
probably
badass.
That's one of my favorite ships in the Star.
It is gorgeous.
That ship is such a badass ship. Like, it's so mean and just. You look at it and it's just like even Picard says it's a predator. I mean, you look at it and it is just beautiful. I mean,
I would not kick that ship out of bed.
I don't know how you got it in your bed, but
I would even buy it dinner
Lots of
first,
talking.
basically.
that's it. We're going straight to bed.
I guess, like, my problem with it would be more, once again, like, story-wise. Like, hey, have you seen Star Trek before? Because, like, the Romulan Empire has, like, a fleet, and, like, where'd this one come from? You just kind of built it, and it's, like, better than everybody's? Like,
Yeah.
If they dropped it in too randomly versus, like, like, these slaves on a, prison moon built a ship that can take on the flagship of the Federation.
Yeah.
Somehow magically.
Well, not only that, but the Remans, we hadn't seen the Remans before this, correct?
I had wondered about that.
Yeah.
I was about to ask you that. I think the Remans, that's the first time they show up, right? Nemesis?
I think
they've
been spoken about. I think that they've been referenced, but I don't think they've actually been introduced.
Okay.
I gotta really laugh about just... I mean, obviously, Star Trek already is a bunch of different planets that have, like, human names. Like Romulus and Vulcan and stuff. But I always thought that them having Romulus and then being like, you know who else? Remans was really fucking funny. Like, really? Remus and Romulus? Really?
Yep.
Really? Okay. All right.
If you got Romulus, you gotta have Remus. Like,
of course.
I forget who they were. Did they founded Rome or something?
Romulus, yeah, exactly. Romulus and Remus were raised by a she-wolf, and they founded Rome.
Okay.
That's the story anyway.
I believe
There's
it.
actually
I wasn't
there's
there.
a couple of different stories from like similar cultures in that area, obviously. So, you know, that's how it is with the Greeks and the Romans, just stealing from each other.
And Remans look like orcs. Or no, yeah.
Yeah,
Corrupted
kind of
elves.
like vampire
Like Nosferatu or something.
things.
There we go.
Yeah, exactly. Like the weird squishy faced vampires.
So are they still out in the galaxy? Like, do we ever hear
don't
from them ever
know.
again?
And you know, the Romulus and Remus thing is really weird because the Romulans are already like people who were Vulcans and then were like, fuck you guys, we're leaving
Exactly.
and founding our own place. So where did the Remans come from? Like, how? Whatever.
You're very
Like, God damn it,
passionate.
Star Trek.
Yeah,
Oh wait,
you're
how
very
long have the
passionate, Sabrina.
Vulcan race been in
Of course I'm
space?
passionate.
Because what could have happened is if we want to play with science fiction, they go to another planet, and if it's been like maybe 1,000 years or more, like they just sent prisoners to the moon who evolved into a different kind of species. I don't know,
Possibly.
Yeah, I guess.
but like Vulcans have been in space a long
okay.
time,
This
right?
is just a whole lot. I don't know. Listen, Australia's been separated for 200 years and they still have the same language. So in like,
Do they? Do
in
they? Talk a little funny down there, I say.
hey, actually, Australian and Cockney accents are still real close. So
Oh.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I don't know what they're talking about because I'm playing. I'll stop.
So what did you guys...
All right.
We
Sorry.
apologize to our Australian listeners.
Yeah, the one of you that's
No,
down
no.
there, we're sorry.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with Australians, guys. I was just playing. I'm sorry.
You can...
Australians,
You can-
we love you all. We're really sorry about your PM and your fires.
Yeah,
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 you guys do it all right.
So what did you guys think about B4 in general? Like his interaction with Data and everything like that. What were your thoughts on that?
Hated it.
That's it. You just hated it.
Can you expand on that?
Sure, yeah. I was make sure that it wasn't jumping in line.
Oh,
if
sure.
You guys wanted somebody else to go first. But for me, the reason why I hated it was like, I don't like it when science fiction starts referencing itself too much. Kind of like how.
Agreed.
Yeah, like you got like the prequels happen, and then you got the Jedi where they're wearing like their Jedi robes, which there's no such thing. They're all dressing and acting like Alec Guinness, who was on Tatooine. So like we're out here in space, and like you have infinite options, and even if it was another android, like did it have to be another Data? Is he
Yeah.
so special? And then then it was also a cop out so that you don't have to deal with actual loss of Data, so he just transferred
Yeah.
himself to another one.
Yeah, it felt very contrived, and I didn't enjoy it. I mean, I didn't like how Brent Spiner portrayed B4. I mean, I know he's like a prototype, but it was just kind of a little too silly, I thought.
Empty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Family-oriented baby humor.
well, it's kind of like I said
Yeah.
earlier. It just came off as generic. I mean, that whole setup and the
I think
whole
that's
thing.
what he was going
yeah.
for, you know?
Well, even
Yeah.
I mean, B4 generic, but even the story itself. I mean, it's just.
Oh, yeah,
it
yeah.
just the whole just story behind it all just seems super generic. It's
Yeah.
the only word I can think of. You know.
Not to mention we've done this before and done it
Evil
way better.
twin!
Yeah.
Yeah.
we have a lore already.
And it was much
And-
better.
Man,
And then they jump through
first
space
Mirror
and time.
episode-
Oh, you go ahead. So what was that?
The first Mirror episode, like, had that issue with, the evil other self having to deal with maybe his morality not being right. They could have done that so easily with Shinzon, and they just didn't, I guess.
And you remember, like, there's like a Star Trek episode where they found Data's head in the past.
Yeah, I
Remember,
love
like,
that.
these weird aliens?
Yep.
That's one of my
yeah,
favorite
love that.
episodes. One of my
Yep.
favorites. Yeah.
That's the Guinan one,
Mind-expanding,
right?
weird, like, aliens that are just so outside
Mm-hmm.
humanity that you're like, wow, what's happening here? But here we just get
Truly.
Data clone and a Picard clone.
Hey, let's
Yeah.
talk about that episode instead of Nemesis. No, I'm just kidding. Changing gears.
Guinan is the best.
Yes,
Guinan
she
is
is
the
awesome.
best.
She's amazing.
Yeah, so I actually get frustrated a lot in movies when I find out that decisions about the story or the certain scenes or whatever weren't driven at all by the inception and creation of the story, but actually just by like outside sources, like what do the actors feel like doing? It's one thing in an episodic show when you're like, we'll have these people play trombone because, the actor already knows how to play trombone. That's fun. You're like
Yeah.
taking pieces of the actor and putting it into the character. But movies are so short. They have to be about like the plot and the story itself. So yeah, I'm glad Picard had fun in that dune buggy, but it's kind of annoying that they made that scene just to make him happy. I get that Brent Spiner didn't want to play Data anymore because he was worried about the fact that he was aging and Data wasn't supposed to, so they killed him. But then for the fans, they brought him back. Like,
Yeah, like if they're, I understand.
Create
like,
your
like,
story
I
for
could-
the story.
I could see him wanting to step down, but hey, don't create another exact one
Exactly.
like him. Then
And then they're doing it again for the Picard series, just like, oh, so I guess they basically ignored what he wanted because he's popular, and I get why he's popular. I love Data; he's one of my faves, but like, well, I'm sure Brent Spiner is happy to be doing it again.
I'm sure they gave him more money, so.
but
Yeah, absolutely.
but also I think they genuinely all like get along with each other.
Yeah.
like the reason why I thought it was probably because was like you have that opening where they just throw away all Star Trek canon and just have just Worf there and not where he's supposed to be, and freaking Wesley Crusher is sitting
yeah,
there
yeah.
at a table to
Shut up,
smile like
Wesley.
nothing happened.
Which is great
But he's
because
supposed to be
What?
dancing the
Yeah.
cosmos and like between dimensions, and he just smiling there.
well,
like,
because it's a wedding. He wanted to be
Hello,
there.
I stopped by to see everyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
I stopped by for the wedding.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
I was walking
mean,
through a
what-
star the other day, and I was like,
What's
"What?
the
My
point
mom-"
in being the traveler if you can't go travel to the wedding of the captain who helped bring you up?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
I just feel like all of Starfleet should have
The
showed up
first
there. I'm like,
officer.
oh my god, where have you been? What have you seen?
Yeah.
Ask me questions. Like, no, I have a wedding to go to. I'm sorry, I can't. Talk.
You,
Sorry,
well,
hold
you know
on.
what's funny is for years I didn't even realize he was sitting there. And I
Poor
know.
Wesley.
No, I know. And like Will Wheaton, first off, I love Will Wheaton so much. He's such a cool
Yeah.
person. But I didn't even notice it. And then I was watching it for, the podcast, and I had to back up. Was like, wait a minute. Did I miss that this whole
Hold on.
time? Like, I must have noticed it when I was younger, when it first came out, I guess, but I totally forgot he was there. So I literally had to, like, do a double take. Was like, wait, Wesley's there? No way.
Every time I see him, I give him the stink eye. Like, you guys don't even fucking care, do you? Does anybody care here about the story?
Well, I
Anyway.
actually would have rather watched a whole movie with them just at the wedding and stuff than what we got with Shinzon, honestly.
Yeah, the wedding scene was sweet. The speeches were well written.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can see they like genuinely love each other. It was kind of nice.
And it definitely feels like the kind of scene that should be like the post climax scene.
Yeah.
Like after everything's nice and fun. So it was an interesting choice to start with that scene.
Well, this way, like they have the story excuse for us not to see them naked,
Yeah.
because that was like their next stop. They're
The
like,
Diana wedding.
I can't wait to see you naked, Worf. Like, I'm not getting naked. I order you to be naked. And like, you're like, why are you guys
Worf-
doing this?
Worf would never attend a Betazoid
No
wedding.
way.
There's no way.
No way. But so I mean, yes, like this isn't our favorite Trek movie, right? There's a lot of bad, and the acting, of the core group has always been tight. Like they're tight, they're close, they're tight.
Yeah.
We see that. But I mean, there was there's Ron Perlman playing his
Yeah.
the first officer of
Oh.
Shinzon. I mean.
That was, he's good.
He
Did not know that.
Yeah, he was
Yep.
amazing, and I mean, there's
He
some,
was.
there's his character, and then the whole like, I mean, let's not hopefully
Diminish
no
it.
trigger warnings, but the whole like mental rape scene. I mean, like
Yeah.
that first off, that was ridiculous, right? Like
Yeah.
that was absolutely ridiculous. But second off, like to take his character, who is probably the one him and Tom Hardy, the as far as non-Trek characters go, he was like their interactions were probably my favorite because, Ron Perlman's amazing, Tom Hardy was amazing, and then to have him do that scene, it was just. It just diminished the whole thing. I'm like, was that really
Yeah.
necessary? I mean, I understand
First of all-
for I understand for the story, but it was really unnecessary.
Yeah,
Don't worry, I have plenty to say about unnecessary rape of any kind in TVs and movies.
Yeah.
And to start with, also it's unnecessary to see like Riker and Troy in bed together. I don't need to see that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't-
I think that kind of chemistry was just kind of gross to watch.
Yeah, we know they're banging, you guys.
Well,
and like,
fine.
yeah,
I hadn't seen
the last time. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I hadn't seen Nemesis
Wait.
in forever, and so I forgot that mind attack scene was in there. And it was just when I saw it, when I watched it a few weeks ago, I was like, wow, that just does not fit in Star Trek. I mean, it just, I don't know, it seemed like it came out of nowhere to me.
It was funny. I was
Yeah.
like posting about like how grossed out I was at Riker and Troy, and then it turns into the rape scene. I'm like, I'm not gonna.
Oh,
talk
God,
about it. It
no.
just gets worse.
Yeah.
And, like you're like, I don't think this is necessary at all in the
Okay.
story.
Yep.
This is very depressing. So let me go back to actors that stood out in that
Yes.
movie.
Thank you.
That lady that I think she's Romulan.
Romulan captain?
Yeah, so she goes to Tom Hardy and tries to like seduce her way in, and then he like totally rejects her. So she's like, "Well, fuck it, and I'm gonna go help the Federation people now." Her acting was good, but she only got those 2 scenes. Like, basically, it didn't really make any like sense. That's a big change to be like, I will try to be on your side. You reject me, all right, I will destroy
You're talking
you.
about Commander Dinatra. That was played by Dina Meyer. So you know her from like
Good job,
Starship
Dina.
Troopers and a bunch of other stuff. Like she's been in all kinds of
God.
stuff. Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, she's not.
I love
like
her.
she's absolutely
Giant
amazing.
mnemonic.
Yeah,
She needed more
absolutely.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I liked her when I saw her on screen. Like when she like said, "Hey, Captain Picard, do you mind if I kick his ass with you?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, yeah, do it!" And then she got knocked out of the fight. And I'm like, like yeah, she was pretty cool. But then she was kind of I'm glad they didn't kill her. I was gonna get so mad if like her ship blew up.
It definitely feels like they used her more to like kind of explain what was going on with the different characters, like
Yeah.
to explain us the thing about Shinzon rather than her being somebody specific, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I wanted to give a quick shout out to Captain Janeway. I like seeing her. Or sorry,
that was awesome.
Admiral Janeway.
Admiral
Admiral.
Janeway.
My mistake. I apologize.
I'm glad that they brought her in to do it. Kamal Gru, obviously, or at least I was a fan of hers. I've heard she's been saying iffy stuff lately,
Oh no.
but forget that. As an actress, definitely, like, I really admire her. I really like how she put her foot down regarding like Janeway is the captain. She will not have an affair with somebody on her ship. She knows, responsibility and et cetera, et cetera. I love. And I understand that they wanted to do a cameo that would make all the fans be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
look,
Farming
it's
Corner
Janeway."
podcast.
But seriously, how did Janeway get Admiral faster than Picard?
Well, I think Picard could have gotten Admiral, but I think he wanted to stay.
This is true.
Yeah, well, he wanted to stay on the Enterprise, right? I mean, that's
That's very Kirk, though. I mean, they already did that with Kirk being like, he made Admiral, and then he was like, I want to go back to Captain.
but Picard's cooler, so it kind of
Well,
he never even. Well, it's weird because Picard tries to talk Riker out of doing the stays on Enterprise thing, but then he ends up doing the same thing himself. I don't know if I believe it.
well,
know?
if you
That's true.
recall, Riker actually passes up promotion to stay under Picard. So that's
Yeah, that's what
it's
I'm
done-
saying.
Yeah.
Picard tried to talk him out of it.
I mean, it's just they do that kind of over and over and over,
Yeah.
But then finally Riker gets his own ship, the USS Titan, which is my ship of choice in Star Trek
Oh,
Online.
is it?
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
my Spectral Knight is what I call it.
Yeah, I don't actually use Federation ships when I'm playing STO. Whoops.
Nice.
Oh my god. You strike me as a Romulan.
My brain ship is so dope.
Brain
It
ship?
trails. I have a brain ship.
Oh,
I think it was
nice.
from a Christmas event a couple of years ago, and it has an ice power, so I can slow down the other ships, so it's easier to shoot at them.
There you
very
go.
cool.
Yeah.
This is not a Star Trek Online podcast. Disclaimer.
Is it?
not yet.
Not yet.
So where does this one like rank in your list of Trek films? I know it's not up at the top, but where is this like your least favorite, or what do you guys think?
I'm actually not a big fan of motion pictures, so Keith and I are gonna have to swap on that
You
guy.
son of a...
I can't get over the like sex with the ship thing.
What's wrong with that? It's this beautiful thing. They loved each other. Okay?
Jeez.
It's science, that's
I'm
science.
gonna say like middle low. It's not as unintelligible to me as Undiscovered Country.
Really, you don't like that one?
I think Undiscovered Country is fun to watch for like fluff.
Okay, yeah.
But I tried to show it to a friend of mine, and he was like, "I don't understand what's happening."
Wait a second. Undiscovered Country is in the top 3, if not sometimes number 1.
Keith,
Keith likes fluff. You see.
I love you, Keith.
I like strategy, I like Shakespeare, and I like philosophy and Sherlock Holmes mysteries.
Are
Anyway,
you
that's-
saying I don't like those things?
I think maybe I might be because I'm being
It's okay.
butthurt.
I'm gonna actually.
That's fair.
I'm gonna actually say so. This is probably in the like lower quarter of my favorite Star Trek movies, and that's just because there are a few in there. Like, and my wife and I always joke about this, about how weak it was, how Kirk died in Generations.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
fuck Generation.
he dies to a set of stairs, or to like, you know what I'm saying, like to like a metal rail. You know what I mean? Like,
Personally,
What? No,
Personally, I thought that was great.
no. A rock falls on
that's what
top of him.
like Kirk, the most badass like starship
Killed by a bridge.
yeah, captain ever until TNG or whatnot. But I mean, Kirk
gets the shit kicked out of him by an 80-year-old
Yeah.
man and thrown off a
I know.
bridge. I'm like, wait, what?
And it was like
That's
that
how
is,
Kirk
that
goes
is
out?
not.
I'm sure had a great time
And I'm
doing
like,
that.
that is not how Kirk goes out. And I remember actually when I was a kid, I went and saw it. Well, I was a teenager,
so mad.
and I went and saw it in the theater, and it was one ending, and then they changed the ending after I had already seen it. Like, there were two
What?
endings, and they actually changed the ending. What was it? I think it's in
Wow.
but in the theater it showed the original ending, and then I guess they got a lot of flack, and there was a different ending or something like that. I remember in
what
the theater I saw it differently than what's on the Blu-ray that I have.
do you remember what it was or what the change was?
Not right now. I'm gonna look it up though, because it drove me crazy, and now it's gonna drive me crazy because I can't remember what it was.
I think you're lying to us.
Oh, really?
Well, if you want different endings, let's watch Clue.
So when it comes to my arrangement of movies, all the OG Star Trek movies I think are good, including number 5.
Really?
Yeah, I said it. Yeah, I'm a weird person like that.
We
I can't
should-
get over how much I liked shooting God in the face.
Well-
That's
Like
interesting
seeing
because
them
you don't like
dive away.
TOS.
Which one?
TOS.
Oh,
It's interesting 'cause you don't
the
like
movies
TOS.
though. The movies though are really good to me.
Yeah.
And then like the Next Generation movies, I don't consider canon. I don't like what they did there.
Really?
I don't want to see. Yeah, I don't want to see Kirk die by falling off a bridge.
Yeah, Generations and Nemesis both.
What about First Contact?
First Contact is good, but once again, like I don't want to see Star Trek reference itself too much. Like,
Yeah.
I know the
Yeah.
Borg is awesome, but I don't need a movie about them. Like, what I want is to see them go to the edge of the galaxy. Or, to me, what I think a Star Trek movie should be is
It's
a
something
Christopher
new.
Nolan. It's Christopher Nolan hard sci-fi. Like, blow
Yeah,
our minds.
I'd be
with
down for that.
Yeah.
Not action reference.
I think, sorry, going back, I looked it up. So in the original ending that was originally shot, Kirk got shot in the back.
That's not much better.
No, it's not, and that's actually and it tested badly.
I'm not sure it's
and
much worse,
I know,
though.
I know.
So they went from shoot him to the back to let a bridge fall on
Yeah.
him. That was their improvement.
Exactly. Sorry.
I mean, his story starts with him being like, I'd rather live in this little log cabin with my horses than be a captain, which
Yeah.
doesn't make sense in the
No.
first place.
Yeah.
So,
But again, I'm sorry. Back to
yeah.
Nemesis.
Right. It's like, what episode is this? What are we talking about?
So I guess we've agreed that Generations is below Nemesis.
That's kind of how I feel too.
yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yes,
yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, Nemesis is a little bit above that for me.
I did like how Generations had a concept of like weird time dilation fields, but that's about all I liked about it.
I liked. I got to see the. Yeah, Generations, man. I don't got much for that one. I was like, I like seeing the Enterprise D. Wait, they killed the Enterprise D in there. What is there, man? Yeah, I got nothing for Generations. Like that is, you're not in continuity. You're out.
Wait,
you're out.
oh, and that's the
Yeah.
one where Data gets scared and can't confront Malcolm McDowell's character
God.
because his emotion
Oh
chip.
my
Do you remember
God.
that? Like when him and Geordi are inside, and he's like, "I
No,
can't."
I had forgotten.
can't.
Thank you.
I don't remember that.
Okay.
Don't get me started on the emotion chip.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have a note about the emotion trip. I hate that thing.
Yeah.
It ruins Data.
I love data, but I hate the emotion chip.
Yep.
Yeah,
Data's
it's wild.
interesting.
They spent 7 years being like, okay, Data's goal is to develop emotions. And they're like, we'll just give it to him in a chip, and then we'll have his brother kind of like use it as a drug. Or maybe not. I mean, or maybe it'll do this other thing. Also, the Borg Queen's going to try to control him with it. Also, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Data because he's not human. Like he was the
Yeah.
Spock extra point of view that other humans couldn't do, and
Yeah.
that's what made him interesting. So if you just make him a goofy dude, it's just like, oh, now you're a guy.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
And then they also don't even use his like heightened physical strength and dexterity because like there's this part in the movie where Picard goes, Data, go open the door, I'll hold him off, and it's Picard wielding 2 guns and wailing on dudes
Yeah.
when Data's fast enough that he could have actually just wiped out everybody on his own.
Also, Picard wailing on dudes is really funny.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
It was funny. But once again, like I saw, like Patrick Stewart was having the time of his life, and like I was like, all right, but
but the movie sucked.
Yeah.
It's like I'm glad the actor's having a good time, but you've kind of assassinated the actual character. But fine.
Yeah. Now I have a question. How does this because this podcast is about the new
Star Trek
series.
Picard.
So how does what's your all's take on this being the last time we've seen Picard before this new series? Like how does the gap look to you? Like what from where he ended that movie to where he's starting here? Like what's your all's take on that?
Well, I mean, there was some mission that he did that kind of drove him out of Starfleet and made him want to leave, and we're not sure what that was. There's like a couple comics that they've put out that I'm pretty sure they say is canon. But
yeah,
but
I haven't
read any
like
of them.
where like
I haven't read any of that stuff.
Yeah, it's secondary canon, you guys. We don't have to.
but that being said, actually, that's what I was going to bring up though, is the fall of Romulus. Romulus being basically exploded. I mean, that's the whole tipping point of the Kelvin timeline. But in this timeline, that could very well, because if you recall, he and Spock were really big in trying to reunify Romulans and Vulcans, right?
Yeah.
So I in my just it's the fanboy in me. I'm like, okay, well, it's got to have something to do with reunification and with Romulus basically being gone and the Romulan people being wiped out, obliterated. I mean.
Yes. Well, it's the Romulans that are in Picard, Star Trek Picard, that are messing around with the Borg, right? So
yeah.
Are they?
Well, we don't.
Yeah.
I know the Borg
we're not
are
sure,
there.
but...
Yeah, we know they're Borg. We know they're like Romulans, obviously. But I've purposely tried not to look at any spoilers.
Yeah,
stuff,
obviously.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
I have you to watch the trailer.
Yep.
So,
I've been doing past research. Like there's videos about the comics, and I'm not remembering all of it. And like I said, I don't remember what happened. I know he gets a new ship called the Verity.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't expect them to connect too much from like Nemesis to Picard.
In fact, I wonder if they're going to just kind of ignore that it happened.
I think they'll ignore a lot of things that happen.
I mean, I'm sure they'll keep that, the wedding happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But I mean, more than anything, it's do you think, like, part of me wonders that whole experience with Shenzon, was that a tipping point? Like I'm hoping that it brings some kind of timeline continuity to what we've seen 20 years ago and what we're seeing now. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be some kind of backstory, which I'm really, really excited to hear and see when they introduce the show. Because there's just, in my mind, and I think in a lot of our minds, people listening, all of us, Picard has lived this whole 20 years. Like, Picard is a person. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, yes, Patrick Stewart plays Picard, but Picard is our captain. You know what I'm saying? Like, like for the last 20 years.
And he's not a passive person.
And for the last 20 years, I want to know what Picard's been doing. I want to know from after Nemesis to this show, like,
What are you talking about? He's been making wine.
I know.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm excited.
I'm cynical. I'm cynical. I have a bad feeling about everything about this. I've been I like looking.
I'm with you, Keith.
I like looking at the business end of it way too much. I get a kick out of it, and there's like a reason why Discovery looks how it does. Like there's contracts that make it so that you can't be too normal Star Trek.
Really?
But something changed recently.
Well, CBS and Viacom merged.
Discovery.
Yeah.
Yep. So that might change. Like as of that moment, we might start getting things that look more like normal Star Trek.
Maybe with Picard, you think?
Quote unquote. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing is the way that I read it, because I'm really excited about the merger as well, because the way that I heard it was CBS owned the rights to the TV show stuff, and Viacom owned the rights to the movies, and they could not coexist in the same universe. Do you see what I'm saying? That's why we have a Kelvin timeline. But now they can exist in the same universe. So that means that, and this is, we're going to kind of jump brands here, which I believe Keith did earlier by accident. But we're going to talk Star Wars and Star Trek, right? So recently, the head guy at Disney said, we're not opposed to TV shows turning into movies or movies turning into TV shows, right? And that's a pretty cool thing when a studio has the ability to take these characters that we love and these stories that we love and expand on them without those limitations. You know what I'm saying? So the merger of Viacom and CBS, I am so excited about.
Yeah, I agree.
We're definitely in a new world of having expanded universe stuff, not just be like the movies or the TV show or the main thing, and then we can write like books on the side or comics on the side. And it's like, you know, some of the stuff starts with comics and then becomes TV shows and then becomes movies, and everything is just like expanded universe Marvel, expanded universe DC, expanded universe Star Wars. And obviously, like, if you have a franchise like Star Trek, you're going to try to do stuff like that too. Even though Star Trek was doing it first, but whatever.
Right.
I'll say
Disney
that
knows how to do it for money.
the thing we might want to watch out for is that they started making this show in the era and ecosystem before the merger. So we're still gonna be with those kind of people. And then also like not to jump franchises or anything, but because of Star Wars, and like where I felt was it went really bad for me. I hated that.
The movies or the TV shows?
The movies, the latest ones. I went through like a little journey the last several years of like rediscovering fiction and why different fiction is different, and like why older stuff to me is way better. And it's because back then, like you had Star Trek created by a guy who like made it his life, that like, you know, it was science fiction, and then they all were all in it. They didn't have as many things to distract them. Versus now, where there's a lot of corporate dealings in how to create science fiction, which makes it
that
more
drives
of a
me
brand.
crazy.
Yeah, it's more a brand than a story.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. And while we're talking about Star Wars, part of the things that I noticed in Mando, not to give any spoilers about scenes that happen, but there are certain scenes that are clearly written because of fandom. And meta stuff like that, like, I know why it exists, but it really frustrates me because it feels like you're paying more attention to how to make the audience giggle and create, you know, viral stuff based on your show, and less about what the show itself is saying and doing.
Yeah.
And I'm very concerned that that's going to happen with Picard. Like, are they bringing in Seven of Nine because of their cool Borg storyline, or because they know we like Jerry Ryan? Are they bringing in the other members of Enterprise because Picard needs... is Marina Sirtis going to show up because Picard needs somebody that he can trust to understand his emotions and to rely on? Or is she only there because we want Marina Sirtis to be there? Exactly, and that drives me crazy, and that's why and I'm sure Keith also, am very nervous about Picard.
Yeah.
Like the ship he's on looks like it's the Firefly. And I'm like, hey, whoa, that's not Picard. He should be in a beautiful Regal ship that, like, you know, you might buy from Apple or something. It has to look good.
Yeah, that very ship design is what makes me concerned that they're going to be like, Picard is Dark Picard now, and the whole world is dark around him. And I'm like, you telling me that the Federation that spans like all of these planets, that is allied with Vulcan, that is somehow allied even with Ferenginar, like, what's going on there? You're telling me that they've all suddenly like lost all of their money and now all their ships look dinky? I don't think so.
Yeah. All I know is I say a prayer to Roddenberry every day that it's not going to suck.
Absolutely.
I'm just...
Yeah, me too.
I'm also not a fan of Kurtzman, so he makes me very anxious.
Okay.
Yeah. My fingers are crossed. Like, I would love for them to slap me in the face and prove me wrong, and I go, "Oh my God, you did a great job."
Yes.
Like Stargate eventually did to me, and like,
good, thank you. I'm glad.
I love being won over, and so like I'm always open to it, but like I'm cautious after what I saw happen with Star Trek Discovery and like the new Star Wars, like brand. Well, yeah, but we'll see.
I admit, for safety, I have a tendency to assume things will make me sad, so that when they don't make me sad, I feel happy rather than just being like neutral. So I'm probably being like particularly it's not gonna be good, but I hope it's really good. I'm gonna lowball it for now so that I don't cry.
Yeah, it's probably gonna suck
later.
So.
Well,
for me, it helps to see these things as different timelines, so I can keep my good stuff and maybe give a chance to other stuff in their weird universe.
Well, you guys know me. Like I'm all about the entertainment, and you know if it's visually good, if the story's good, even if there are aspects that I don't care for, you know, I'm that guy that's like, okay, I'll find the good in it. You know what I mean?
That's
Yeah.
full
And that's-
thumbs up
yeah.
for me. I like it when people like things.
I admire
Yeah.
it. I
And
just
that's
can't
why
do it.
there are things about
Yeah.
Discovery that I really, really enjoy. So I mean, you know, I'm that guy that can kind of pick the good out of a bad situation if I need to. You know what I mean? I would prefer to not have to, but if but if that's what it is, you know. So I mean, I know, and you all know, Keith, you're just getting to know me, but you know, I'm gonna like Picard. There's gonna be something about Picard
Good.
that I like, just because that's just how I'm built. But I will be honest about the things that bug me, if there is anything, you know.
Yeah.
Good,
Yep,
because
and
otherwise,
like-
what are you doing on this podcast?
Right?
Yeah, any like hate I ever give or any kind of roasting is never to put anyone else's opinion down. Like,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
like I like
Yeah.
that people. Yeah, like if I say I don't like something,
Yeah.
it's never to
Say
Try
that
to-
somebody
yeah.
else shouldn't like it
Yeah.
also.
Absolutely,
right.
yeah.
Like yeah, go for what you like.
Absolutely.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
I hope everyone enjoys it.
Yes, me too.
If I don't, I hope someone else
Exactly.
enjoys it because I don't.
You're like, I know.
I mean, what could possibly
I know
go
Jay will
wrong?
like
damn
it.
it.
So, yeah,
What
no.
could possibly go wrong?
It's okay. I don't like it, but I know Jay will, so it's fine.
Right. As long as Jay is happy, it's okay.
Exactly.
No, genuinely.
I'm
You
looking
don't
at
know.
series writing credits, and like Gene Roddenberry wrote 10 of the episodes. It's on IMDb.
What?
For some reason, they say that Gene Roddenberry wrote 10 of the Picard episodes.
Well, that's clearly not.
I mean, unless he's not dead. No, they might have just put him on there because he's Gene Roddenberry, you know.
Or it's a time loop.
Oh shit.
Oh my god.
Or he just has the story credit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they had a lot of
you know-
stuff written that didn't go to film. You know what I mean? Like these,
That's
they
true.
could be pulling from older stories that had been written that had never been used. I mean, I was watching a.
You think they used some of those like series 2 TOS plots?
I don't know.
We'll see if like the Gorn shows up or something.
Yeah.
I fucking hope they do.
All right. Do we have any final thoughts on Star Trek Nemesis before we wrap up here?
I thought the starship would be named Nemesis, not Scimitar.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
No, it's because Shinzon's his nemesis.
Oh. Okay.
Shut up.
On the.
Yeah, it is on the nose. You're right.
a little.
It's kind of on par for this movie. So yeah.
I wouldn't even call that guy, Picard's nemesis. Isn't his nemesis Q?
No.
Nemesis.
No. Q is
Nemesis.
his boyfriend, his lover. I mean, let's be
His
no, I'm
weird,
kidding.
stocky boyfriend.
His stocky ex-boyfriend.
Oh.
Okay, but since we brought up Q, I just have to give you guys my pet theory that Trelane is related. Trelane is a Q, right?
What's a Trelane?
Oh, there's a TOS episode where there's this dude called Trelane that like teleports everybody to this island and that he can control them and he just has magic powers. And then the episode ends with two like deity voices popping up and being like, "Put your toys away now. It is time for you to go to sleep." And I'm
Awesome.
100% convinced that Q was based on Trelane, and he's just like Trelane as an adult. And that the parents were
Sounds about
Qs.
right.
They're like, "Stop messing with the humans." So
That sounds right.
Yeah.
yeah,
I would like to believe this.
Trelane
Yep.
is a Q. I just wanted to
It,
drop
it,
that.
All right. Well,
we
That's
we
all
have
I got.
spoken. It is now
Yes.
canon.
Right.
I mean, Nemesis might pop up in Picard in regards to the, Picard being there right about when the Romulans got wiped out. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, in the last 20 years, I'm sure the Romulans have done their best to rebuild. But, okay, so Star Trek 2009 is, at the beginning of it, the part with Spock is considered part of the Prime Universe. It's in a STO. So we know eventually Romulans are going to blow themselves up. There was a suggestion that it was because of the experiments that the Romulans were doing, they blew themselves up. So my hope is that they'll tie it in by having it be like, the Romulans were messing around and then they created the shenanigans with the Remans and then Shinzon blew them up. And in an attempt to get back to their former power as quickly as possible because they don't want to get, destroyed by the Federation or the Klingons, just being like, well, the Romulan Empire is part of our empire now, even though I know that's not how the Federation works. That doesn't mean the Romulans don't believe that they would do it.
Yeah.
Then in their effort to rebuild as quickly as possible, they end up blowing themselves up, and then Picard feels like vaguely like it's his fault because he didn't do what Shinzon did, but Shinzon existed because he existed. So that might be interesting, but do I trust them to do that?
Probably not, because that's a really good idea.
And it seems
so
like a stretch. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, it
thanks.
seems like a stretch for them.
I want to see.
Yeah.
Can
I wanna see
I
them
write
pull
for
in-
Star Trek, dang it?
Yes.
I want to see them pull in the Star Trek Online stuff, where after Romulus blew up, we get the Romulan Star Empire, where they're like this
Yeah.
nomadic space race of giant space stations and roaming fleets.
Oh my god, that would be so cool. And then
That's why they're not
because
gonna do
Picard
it.
has dealt with the Romulans already.
Exactly.
Dang it. Yeah, because then like you would have Picard who had already dealt with the Romulans, so he quit because of what happened with the Romulus Star, and then the Star Empire is floating around, and they're like, we need you to do some diplomacy, please. And he's like, seriously? You guys remember what happened last time, right?
I hope they do science fiction Star Trek world building and not Star Trek wielding of brand. There you go.
Bless you. I agree
Yeah.
completely.
And again, that's why it won't happen, is because it's what should happen.
Yeah.
We're all cynics except Jay.
I hope Jay's right.
Yeah, so do I.
Me too.
I hope Jay's right too.
Yeah. All right. On that note, is there anything else we have to say about Nemesis? I give it an F- personally, but
There,
I'll give it a D-.
Ooh, okay.
At least like visually it looked like Star Trek.
that's true.
I'll give it.
I give it a.
Go ahead, Keith.
I'll give it a. Thanks for showing up, guys.
Participation award.
Participation trophy.
It was
There
good
you go.
seeing you. It was good seeing you. It was good seeing you.
I actually am going to give it a full D, just because. Yes,
Oh,
just
okay.
because it introduced me to Tom Hardy, who I'm a huge fan of now. I mean, there
Okay.
were aspects of the film that I did not hate, so I can't, in good conscience, give it an F. A D- has already been taken, so I'm giving it a D.
All
And
right.
actually, I'm going to upgrade mine to an F.
Okay, there you
I
go.
think, yeah.
Okay.
So
It didn't super fail. It just failed.
it just failed, right?
Yeah.
It didn't fail twice.
I'll say solid D.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah. All right.
All right, well,
You're gonna give it a solid D, huh?
Oh yeah.
boom. Okay. On that
All right,
on that
all right.
note,
Giggity giggity.
D for
yes. On that note,
Enterprise D.
thanks for everybody for tuning in. So you can find us online at therearefourhosts.com. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/4hosts. And until next time, we will see you later.
Bye. Thanks
Bye.
everyone. See you next time.